Got 4.
There. Silence these little babies. Are we waiting for anybody else?
You have a
Everybody's here?
quorum.
All right. Let me silence my phone. Let me silence my phone. Oh, good idea. Thank you, Dave. Ask everybody else to do the same. Silence those phones. All right. So it is 5:36, and I'm calling the meeting of the board to order. First item, please.
Item 1, study session. Item 1A, call to order. Item B, roll call.
Roll call, please.
President Alvarado,
Here.
Vice President Sedith.
She's on mute, so
Oh, she's on mute, okay.
Vice President Sadif?
she should be over here.
Yes.
There you go.
Yep.
Director Stanley. Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Zepeda.
Here.
Item 1C, study session. Receive a presentation on inflow and infiltration initiatives.
Right.
So
On the air.
Michael's going to be presenting this item this evening, so.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Michael Savannah, the Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. There is a presentation that I'm going to give you this evening about I&I and some of the I&I initiatives that we have that are going to come back to the board.
Okay.
So, why are we here is really the question. The district is committed to reducing and eliminating I&I. The district got a presentation on the collection system. There was a collection system overview presentation that the board received. And as part of that, we talked about I&I, what I&I was, and then we'll talk about does I&I serve the district mission. We'll then talk about the impacts of I&I and some of the I&I initiatives moving forward, and then what the next steps are. So what is I&I? If you guys recall this graphic here, it explained what I&I is and how we get I&I, and essentially I&I is runoff that gets in our sewer lines that shouldn't be in our sewer lines. It comes in through illegal lateral taps, roots in the lines, cracks or deficiencies in our main line or in laterals. Does it serve the district mission? And what I wanted to do is just put the district mission up for us to look at it, and then we can think about it as we go through this presentation. And then I'll ask this question again after the presentation or after a couple of slides in the presentation, and we can make an assessment as to whether or not it serves it. The district mission is to protect the public health through the safe, responsible collection of treatment of wastewater, to recover for reuse while promoting environmental stewardship for the West County community. Some of the impacts of I&I are that they burden the system and can cause capacity-related overflows. We have certain flows during the dry weather, and when we get I&I, our pipes fill up with additional runoff. That runoff reduces our capacity for collection from residents, commercial and industrial users. It also reduces our capacity for treatment at the plant. Lack of capacity also impedes new development. So there's a lot of new development that's going on in the Bay Area, and we have lines that can maintain or can handle a lot of that development as long as we keep the I&I out. When we start letting the I&I in, we've got less pipe space that we can fill up with wastewater to treat because we're filling it up with rainwater. These are some of the impacts of I&I. If you notice on the top, that is from a surcharging manhole. That's an intersection that's full of sewage. It could be rainwater that got into our system and then it overflowed, but at the point that it gets in our system, it's just as bad as wastewater. So there's wastewater in the street. The bottom picture is an SSO that we had from one of our lines backing up and going into a resident's home. The top picture here, both of these pictures are our EQ basin. So the bottom, and most of the time our EQ basins are empty until we have more water at the plant than we can treat. And then we send them out to the EQ basin until we gain more capacity in the system by treating wastewater and the rainwater and all of the inflow into the plant slows down. And then we bring this water back to the plant to treat. So the picture at the bottom that looks like a lake is actually a basin of wastewater that we would not have, we would have had to release that into the environment if we didn't have the ability to store it here until we could send it back to our plant. At the top there, you see it looks like a rectangular shape. That's the water that is more than we have the ability to hold in the EQ basin, so we're losing that. This is a development or a planned development that we would not be able to support if we used up all of our capacity in our lines with I&I. So again, I ask, does it serve the district mission? And without polling the board, I'm just going to assume that you guys see it like me, that no, it doesn't. So I&I is actually not a good thing for the district. We want to keep as much I&I out of our lines as we can so that we can actually safely and responsibly collect and treat wastewater. Having it back up into residents' homes is not safe, and having the intersection full of water like that is not responsible. Some of the I&I initiatives that you'll see coming forward in the coming months will be related to collection system assets and also related to private laterals. The items that will be related to the collection system assets will be the different various pipe projects that we have going on that some of them were planned as I&I initiatives. Others of them are pipe replacements that we needed to do anyway that will help with I&I. And then we have items like Basin 7 pipe project. This is a pipe project, and I put it here to highlight for you because this project was identified directly from our I&I study that was put on by VNA. What we did here is after the last storm that we had, I'm trying to remember what it's called, atmospheric river that we had, where we lost a bunch of water at our plant because we weren't able to treat it and we didn't have capacity. We immediately looked at where our I&I study was. It wasn't complete at the time. They had done all but one basin. So we knew whatever basin was the highest I&I contributor at that point, at worst, was our second worst basin. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. At worst, that was our second worst basin, and we wanted to get in front of that, so we pulled together a project. And if you remember from our capital plan, we had $4 million allocated for additional pipes every year that were undefined. This is one of those projects. And then you'll see some monitoring initiatives results. And really what that is we're going to go back and we're going to look and we're going to say, we did all of this pipe work here. Is there any evidence, or can we confirm that this has helped with I&I? Can we confirm that this initiative has helped with I&I? So those things will be coming back. And then there are things that are going to be related to the private laterals, such as the lateral financing program, which is intended to be an assistance program to support residents who couldn't otherwise fix their laterals, but also to give incentive for people to fix their laterals, which will help with our I&I. I believe that we came to an understanding that about 50% of our CSO call-outs have to do with hammer taps and bad laterals. The other thing you'll see come back is some ordinance upgrades and revisions. We currently have an ordinance that requires that laterals be maintained. And there's some questions that we have and we want to fill out where the board has an appetite for different things in the ordinance. And we want to build in some additional flexibilities and also some teeth for the enforcement. I kind of ran through a lot of this information already and forgot to click forward, but the I&I pipe projects this has to do with the projects that we put the $4 million per year into the budget. We've got about $24 million over the next 5 years for I&I pipe projects. There's $4 million in the current fiscal year, which is being used for the Basin 7 project to target a source of I&I. The numbers that we put in our plan were based on a minimum replacement of 2 miles of pipe per year. We targeted towards the highest I&I areas in any given year. And this is in addition to some of the other priority pipe bundles that we have. Another thing that we're proposing and planning to do is go out and inspect our manholes as sources of I&I. So this picture is actually from the inside of a manhole. And where you see the water coming in here is actually a seam in the manhole. The wastewater should be running at the bottom here. So this is just water pouring into our system that we don't need to treat and we shouldn't be treating. So we're going to go out and we're going to visually inspect, starting with the low-lying areas and the areas that we know have problems with surcharging manholes and heavy rain. And we're going to start looking at the manholes and figure out which manholes have I&I issues so that we can come back and fix those manholes either under our spot repair program or through our pipe projects. These are two other examples of the same thing. The manhole at the top has a very big problem with I&I. It looks like it's coming in under pressure. The other one has I&I coming in through some seams in the barrels. If that didn't make sense, when you build manholes, you put a base at the bottom, and then you stack up these cones on top of each other. In between each of those cones is a seam, and we put something in there to seal that seam, sort of a grout material. As that grout gets old and the pressure from groundwater and the corrosiveness of the environment, you start to get water leaking in. So at all of these seams, and if you look at the picture here with the stairs, you can see the seams here. These are all grouted seams. So over time, those seams start to leak. We have a process of repairing that, and this may be a bit too in the weeds, but we have a process of repairing that has to do with a two-part epoxy that we go in and we spray on the inside of the manhole if it's salvageable, and it reduces a lot of that I&I. We do that under our spot repair program currently. So under the ordinance, currently we have an ordinance that requires residents to maintain a functional and healthy lateral. It also requires that at the point of sale, that residents come to the district office and we provide them with a certificate of compliance. Normally what we do is we request a video. We review the video and we look for deficiencies in the line. If we find any deficiencies in the line, we require those deficiencies to be fixed. If it's too many deficiencies to fix, if there's more than one or two deficiencies, we require the entire line to be replaced. At the point that the line is replaced, we issue a certificate of compliance, which is good for 10 years. That certificate of compliance is supposed to be present at the time that the title transfers hands. We don't currently have a mechanism for enforcing that. So a lot of times what happens is a house sells and no one comes to the district office to check and see if there's a certificate of compliance on file. And then what happens is the new owner wants to do a remodel and they come here because the building department requires them to come to us and get a stamp before they give them a building permit. So they come to the district office to get that stamp, and we review the video, and now the new owner, who didn't know about this ordinance, now is stuck with replacing a lateral. So part of what we're looking for in the ordinance update is some flexibility around how we deal with hardships, but also some more teeth in terms of the enforcement and an understanding for the board's appetite for enforcement. One of the big missing links in the district now is understanding what the board's appetite is in terms of enforcing this ordinance. So you'll see the ordinance coming back with some modifications in it, some recommended modifications for the board approval. And then there's the private lateral financing. And again, this is intended to, on one hand, help residents that can't afford to replace laterals, that need to replace them, and on the other hand, incentivize replacing the laterals so that people will willingly replace them and we don't have to go and track them down and figure out who didn't replace their lateral and argue with them about replacing their lateral and talk about what our enforcement methods are as opposed to them fixing lateral and us reducing the I&I. One idea and recommendation you'll see is the revitalizing, I guess, of the grant program that we've had here in the past. We went through, we did some research, we looked at what other organizations are doing in terms of a grant program. We made some decisions internally about what we thought would be the best ideas for the grant program within the district. And we made some modifications to it. So you'll see that coming back, and I asked for a refunding of that program. And then there's the idea of a loan program, which we're investigating currently in terms of, and really what that is if you give someone a grant to do a lateral, and the lateral costs $10,000, you can give them a $9,000 grant or a $9,900 grant, and if they don't have $10, they're not going to fix a lateral. So figuring out how do we help people fix laterals so that we can get rid of all of our I&I is essentially what our lateral financing initiatives will be about. So the next steps for the private lateral ordinance update is to get we'd really like to have a discussion and get some direction and some insight into what the board would like to see in these updates. And again, the board's appetite for enforcement and where we go with enforcement and what that looks like. We've had some discussions with the attorney about how enforcement works and how we could enforce, but never really a discussion with the board around how the board feels about these different types of enforcement. And the staff will prepare and present a board item introducing the recommendations for the ordinance update. Similarly, with the lateral financing, we've worked on and are finalizing a funding program and some different options in terms of a grant program and a loan program. And staff will prepare and present to the board an item on each of those proposed initiatives or programs. There are some fiscal impacts to be considered. One of them being the cost of the programs and the cost of the operations of the programs, and the dedication of district funds and how that impacts other initiatives that the board has in mind or staff has in mind. And I know I'll move through that rather quickly, but I'm available for any questions that anybody has about these initiatives.
Okay, we're going to start from the left to the right. Director Stanley.
So you're replacing 2 miles of. Here comes this one. Of pipe per year. Is that correct?
Cheryl's there.
Is that correct?
When we did our plan, our intent was to replace 2 miles of pipe per year.
Okay, so is this only to the I&I project, or is this overall?
The 2 miles of pipe per year?
Yeah.
The plan had to do with overall. It was not specific to I&I.
Okay, well then this is my first question. Industry standard is to replace 2% of total pipes per year, so that every 50 years 100% of the pipes are replaced. At 2 miles per year, and we have 235 approximate miles, that means every 117.5 years we would replace all the pipes, and our pipes are, my understanding, are only supposed to last around 50, 60 years, and we haven't replaced a significant amount of pipes for quite some time. So rather than more than doubling the amount of time, over 100 years to replace all of our pipes, why are we so small? And that's my first question.
So when we did our capital plan, we went in with a similar number of wanting to replace at least the industry standard. And when we started digging into our plan and we put all of these funds in for pipe replacement, and we looked at all of the other priorities in the district, what we found is that we don't have capacity to replace as much pipe as we need to replace, as fast as we need to replace it, without neglecting the entire rest of the district. So what we've done with our plan, and this presentation doesn't speak to it, what we've done with our plan is we put in as much pipe work as we felt like we possibly could. And I don't have a number for how many miles of pipe that is per year, but I can get that number and bring it back. The intent here with saying the 2 miles of pipe per year is connected to something else that we had, and I believe it may have been the River Watch agreement, where we're required to replace a certain number of pipes per year. It may have been a River Watch agreement or the Table 7, but I'll figure that out and I'll bring that back. The I&I initiatives are not just 2 miles of pipe per year. We just dumped in a bunch of money. We dumped in $5 million per year in pipe replacement just for I&I. We have a number of other initiatives. I believe it's in the area of $25 million or so for the next 5 years in order to replace pipes. So I don't have a specific number for how many miles of pipe per year we're going to replace, but I can get that number to you.
Okay,
On the 2%, those are, is it industry standard or budgeting numbers that you would put up there and say this is what you need to be projecting, kind of what we're expecting on life expectancy of the infrastructure? But as Michael said, what we have to do currently is we have to take a look at the condition that currently exists, and then we have to do the risk analysis and figure out where to spend that money. But even on the pipes, we won't necessarily need to replace them all in 50 years because they have a life expectancy of 50. Many of these pieces of infrastructure like that will last longer than that, but that's why the condition assessment, the inspections, and the overall risk analysis has to happen. To make your point, it's an excellent one. I think it's locally inadequate to really replace the existing
Well,
infrastructure.
I understand that pipes might and do last longer than 50 years. However, many of our pipes are already at the 50-year mark. Even if we were to replace 2% of our pipes, it's still going to be another 50 years. So that means that we're hoping that our pipes last and a total of 100 years in total or longer, depending, and that kind of concerns me. I'm also just a little bit confused here. We used to have a finance committee, and we certainly still have a planning committee. And what those two committees did was the planning committee vetted and answered a lot of the questions that you're asking right now as to what, and the finance committee answered questions of how it was going to get funded. And I have repeatedly asked why we're not seeking out bringing in consultants who do nothing but look for grants to help fund these kind of projects, because I'm not convinced that it's prudent to get into the lending business. There's all kinds of legal complications with that. And my question to you, especially Michael, when you said we don't have the capacity to replace all the pipes, now you're talking about spending a certain amount of money about replacing, presenting a lending vehicle in which we're allotting some of our funds. However, we're not replacing our pipes. So what are we, you're saying to me, what I'm hearing is you're saying to me, we're not going to replace all the pipes that we should because we don't have the capacity. However, we do have the capacity to lend money to the public so that they can replace their pipes. My query from you is, can't we find a program that would provide these funds that don't come out of our budget? And I've gotten some pushback in the past about, why aren't we bringing in grant people? And why do you think that this district should get in the financing business? So there's just so many complications no matter how you look at it. And I've spent a certain amount of time talking about it and thinking about it and going, it's just not our business. So why do you think that it's a good idea?
Michael, can I take that question? So to clarify, the loan program that we're talking about, what we're looking at is not the district loaning funds, but perhaps the district partnering with organizations that do loans. And that is just something that we're looking at the moment, but we don't have a plan necessarily that we're suggesting or proposing at this time that we would actually loan money to anyone. So that was something we investigated a little bit at the beginning, but we've moved away from that. And again, it's still in development. So I just want to clarify that piece.
Okay, because I'm not in favor of us taking any of our budget and creating a loan program.
Yeah, I think we thought about it at the beginning, but we've moved away from that and are looking more at partnerships where the district may be able to find organizations that we can refer to residents that they could, if they need additional funding, if they're not eligible or it's not sufficient from a grant fund, they could look to an insurance program is one of them. And we'll get into it in more detail, but I just wanted to clarify that piece of it and let you know that's not what we're proposing and that won't be coming forward.
There is an insurance thing
Yeah,
there.
yeah, we won't be proposing a loan program in that way.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm done.
Okay. Director Weiner?
I asked, through email, I asked a question regarding can we focus our funding assistance by locality that has the biggest I&I problems so that we get the most bang for our dollars. And I was told that that's legal, but then there was some further communication about costs of proving.
To
So
get to the
that I didn't
rationale
get,
that
yeah.
supports the legality of it. Do you want to address that?
I guess I'm not really clear on what the question is. The original question was about legality, and I think Mick answered that. And the rationale for how so the grant program, essentially some of the recommendations in there have to do with incentives for areas that have higher I&I. And the reason for that is we want to get rid of I&I. So if we know, and we've already invested in a study with VNA to figure out where the highest I&I is in the district, we want to invest in that area to get the biggest bang for our buck. So that's coming in the grant language, in the grant program language. There are provisions for incentives in the higher I&I areas. There's also incentives for people who have longer laterals or deeper laterals, or to take into account that those laterals are going to cost more. And in order to incentivize and get people on board with completing their lateral repairs that they need to get done, we want to make sure that the funds are there to incentivize those areas.
Yeah, that wasn't, there was an email, you may have not been on the email list.
It was my misunderstanding of your question, so I responded to a different, and Michael and I just talked about it beforehand. So it was my misunderstanding.
Okay,
of
so
it.
there wouldn't be any extra cost to try to figure out a justification if your justification was, we want to stress these areas. And I know there's language in law that says we cannot use our ratepayer money to subsidize low income or other reasons for subsidizing customers. We have to be fair across the spectrum of our customers.
You can't give rate discounts, for example, to seniors or low-income people. Everybody has to pay the same rate. Where you allocate the money you've already received is more in your discretion. So if you were to say, this area of the district has more I&I, we want to focus money there, you can do that. That's legal.
That's what I got from my question. It was the second part.
It was my misunderstanding.
Okay,
So
good. All right.
I caused the confusion. I apologize.
Yeah.
And I didn't know
Okay,
that
you
until I
probably
talked to
didn't.
Michael later.
You just didn't clear up any confusion because confusion is my business.
Right. I created it.
Yeah, I don't think you created it. I'm confused. Thank you.
All set?
I'm done.
Director Spada?
Sure. Yes. I have a few questions. First, if I can piggyback off of Director Weiner's question, the funding for lower income communities, not, if I understand correctly, not all the funding that we have comes from taxpayer revenue. Some money that we have come from other sources. Can we use those other sources and allocate those towards a program such as Director Weiner was mentioning?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're not necessarily limited by as Mick said, you can use the funds and the ratepayer funds. We do have some other revenues that can be used for any purpose in the district, but that's the same with the sewer rates as long as they're going toward the operation. Those numbers are small, but I do think that some of that is what we're looking at in terms of proposing the grant program.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So.
All right, I'll start from the top of my questions here.
And just to clarify, if I might, we had a working group, and in that working group, we talked about all the elements of the grant program, and a means assistance was one of the things that came up. And one of the things that staff decided was that we wanted to make this program the least amount of burden on staff so that we could continue to do the work that we need to do, but we can also help out getting the work done that we need residents to do. And with the amount of work that we have to do currently, it seemed like it would be a huge task to take on having staff do the means test to figure out who fits within the low income. So we didn't put a low income provision in the grant program, and the reason that that isn't in there currently, and we can talk about that and revisit that if that's what we need to do before bringing it back to the board, is because our intent was to get rid of I&I, regardless of whose lateral is bringing the I&I.
Thank you for that.
So I just didn't want you to expect to see the means in there, and we don't have it in there. So if we need to have that in there when we bring it to the board, we can have discussions about adding that work back in.
Thank you. My other question is in regards to, and I don't know if this fits in here or not, but if we do a loan or a grant or a whatever source of putting revenue out there to try to fix this issue, do we then have a type of system or process to be able to collect from those individuals should they fail to repay? Can we go into and put this into the tax roll so that we can collect?
Yes, you can. The community facilities law allows you to do that. The board would have to adopt a resolution allowing that to occur. Once that occurs, you submit it to the county assessor. It goes on the tax roll. So you will collect your money. It's not a panacea, however, because people have to pay their taxes. If they don't pay that, or their tax bill or that portion that pertains to the sewer district, after 5 years, their property is subject to tax sale. So that, there is still a risk to the homeowner of doing that. If you're going to lend money, you can do it by deed of trust on their property. That is, that's a possible solution or a possible security measure. The problem with that, too, primarily is once you take a deed of trust on property, on residential property of 4 units or less, your only remedy is to foreclose that deed of trust. If you foreclose a deed of trust that is in less than first position, you end up buying the first, or all prior lien. So huge expense there. Third option is to take no security, and then you have to sue to collect your money. So yes, you can secure the collection of your money. Nothing is perfect.
And again, we're not really looking at doing the loans, and some of these issues are the reasons we moved away from doing a loan program. I did want to say also on the fiscal is that, as Michael mentioned, with about 50% of all of our service calls going to private laterals, there will be some offset eventually in that we're not going to be sending staff out to deal with so many overflows that aren't related to our system. So there is some offset to putting this money up front because it will reduce the cost of that response.
Thank you. That was one of my other questions, the ROI of this investment. How does it come back? How much does it cost? How much is it costing us to be where we are today, and how much are we going to be saving once we get all this fixed? And the ROI and whatever investment, would it be a grant or a loan, or we pay it all, or anything else? I'm not sure we have an answer on that or not. No. The other question so let's say we get every pipe fixed, and I know 2 miles per year is not going to fix them all now, but whatever amount we end up fixing, we are in a fault line, so we have an earthquake. Do we have insurance to secure that? And can we buy insurance if we don't?
You could buy insurance. I don't think earthquake is covered under your CSRMA policy at this point. You can buy that type of coverage.
Because I'm just thinking, if we're investing all this money and the big earthquake is coming sooner than later, if our infrastructure gets damaged, we're going to be in the hole for that. So I don't know if there's something that we can do to figure out mitigating that cost, because it's coming. It's not that it's not going to come, and I just would hate for us to say, hey, we celebrate brand new pipes, and then we start over again.
It's really a risk management question, though. Earthquake insurance is very expensive and tends to have a fairly high deductible. So you need a fairly substantial loss in order to justify it. Even if you get the big earthquake, it's not likely to wipe out your entire system. It'd be more of, sections of the system. So
Yeah, so maybe-
it's really something for, a committee of the board or the entire board to think, okay, how much money are we willing to risk or to invest or put into this to offset the risk?
And you might also consider increasing the reserve limit so that we have additional funds available should that happen, because it might not be covered, even if we have the additional insurance.
That's
We
good.
know we don't have insurance. What we're currently doing is we are installing a plastic pipe, which is thicker than what's normally used for sewers. In the event that we have an earthquake, we're hoping that it'll sustain a lot better than a more rigid pipe. So you'll notice that in our system, we have a lot of clay pipe, a lot of asbestos concrete pipe. And what we're putting in is a C900 pipe, which is a plastic pipe with a flexible joint. So the pipe has a little bit more room for movement before it breaks. So it's not complete insurance, but we're definitely taking some measures to try to get in front of that type of stuff.
Thank you for that. And you had mentioned that when somebody buys or sells a house, that they don't check with us, obviously, to see if they have to have any kinds of permits. Is there a way that we can work with the 3 different cities and the county to see if they can create a process, I don't know if this is possible or not, where then when somebody buys or sells a house, they check in with the city, and the city tells them you have to check in with the wastewater district, and this is another checkbox before you buy the house or sell the house?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So we've tried some of that. We've tried some of that outreach with the cities and with the county. And the short answer is they've all explained to us that they won't enforce our ordinance.
So what we are planning is, and once the program is sort of set up and the board approves it, we're going to do some more outreach to work with the escrow companies so that because we've got to rely on them, because we, unlike in the city where we would know if some property transferred, we don't have that information. So we want to see if we can create more of a understanding among that community of escrow agents and real estate agents so that they can help us with that ordinance. We haven't done a study, but there is some evidence to suggest that they either are not really well informed about it and or don't think we enforce, so they're not pushing the issue. So those are some things we need to overcome.
It is somewhat ironic, because we did work with the Board of
Yeah.
Realtors in passing the ordinance that requires lateral inspections. And for a while, they seem to be fairly well in tune with it. It's just kind of fallen off in recent years. We also considered, is there a way to record a document that binds every parcel such that the requirement would show up on a title report? We haven't figured that one out yet, but that's still
On the minor
one of the
thought.
possibilities.
Well, thank you. That's good thinking there. I like that. And I think that is it for my questions.
We've talked to some title companies, and we've talked to some of the escrow companies, and we've talked to real estate agents. It's just a work in progress. We're just not there yet.
Thank you.
And one of the things that we have gotten back from, some honest feedback from realtors, and they've told us, we understand that you guys don't really enforce your ordinance, which is why we're coming back with an ordinance modification, looking for some 18 ordinance, really wanting to understand what's the board's appetite around enforcement, because as Nick said, we can put it on the property, we can put it on the property tax, but if someone doesn't pay for 5 years, then the property is getting sold, and is the board actually okay with that in order to fix a lateral, or should we take a different measure? And really, that's the crux of the ordinance update. We need some more ability to enforce, or people aren't going to fix their lateral because it's a costly measure. And if I can not do it and still sell this house, then why would I do it?
For example, the district does have the legal authority to replace the lateral at its own expense and lien the property for the expense without the consent of the property owner. That's real aggressive enforcement. Do you want to go that far?
And that's some of the stuff that we've talked about, and one of staff's concerns is just staff safety. Having staff go on someone's property who doesn't want you on their property, fixing their lateral down a trench, and then leaning their property. So we've had some of those discussions internally, and we really want to have a discussion around how the board views that stuff.
All set?
Thank you. All set. Thank you. Thank you.
Peter?
I wanted to direct this to Mick. The escrow company, it seems to me like they they go through all of the lien, they're supposed to know everything that's required for the property for the transfer of ownership. And they charge a fair amount of money to produce all the paperwork and tell you what you have to do in order to get the deed in your name. Why aren't they liable to put this information out? And is there any way to make them liable to bring this up?
It's a good question. The title company is responsible for making sure that all things of record are complied with. That's why when Director Cepeda asked this question, I said we were thinking about recording a document that binds every parcel and gives notice so that the title companies would pick that up and include it on a title policy. That's something that we've talked about. It just hasn't been decided because it's a very, technically you may have to go to every parcel. You have, 26,000 customers or something like that. You have to then record something on every parcel. So we're kind of working through A, can you do it, and B, if you can, how do you do it? The title company is not responsible for things that are not of record. Realtors are, however, and we've actually referred some buyers back to their realtors saying, hey, your realtor should have told you about this ordinance because it's been in effect. So they do have some recourse. It's not a great recourse because even though the lateral replacement costs are substantial to a homeowner, to sue to recover that amount of money is really, maybe not cost effective.
I want to move along. I want to see if Vice President Sudduth, and then we'll come back to you. Vice President Sudduth? Vice
Yes.
President, do you have any questions?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's a good presentation. Thank you. I'll have questions once we get the recommendations. I see they're going to have recommendations later. So I'm fine for right now.
Okay, thank you. And then after
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I have a couple questions, and then I'll see if the board has any more. Getting back to, it would be like not really cost effective to put a lien on everybody's property. 26,000 homes. But is there a way that we can get a report every time there's going to be a sale of the homes? And then those homes make sure that the lateral has been inspected and cleared.
There probably is. One way would be to have somebody tour the district every once a week or once a month or something like that, note that all properties that are for sale, and give notice to the individuals involved. That's one way to do it. Again, the question is how much staff time and how much effort do you want?
That wouldn't be cost effective either.
It's a good thought, and where the staff is thinking about all these
We
issues.
actually were doing that. When I got here 5 years ago.
Really?
The engineer at the county would look through all of the listings. I don't think it was once a week. It may have been twice a month, and send out letters to those addresses and say, you need to bring your lateral into compliance. You need to bring in a video. We need to review it. You need a certificate of compliance. And again, it goes back to the realtors pushing a understanding that we're not going to enforce our ordinance. So it really gets back there. Regardless of what we do, it gets back to whether or not we're going to enforce our ordinance.
I would think that the banks or the mortgage companies that are lending money on these homes for the mortgages would want to know that the sewer lateral is on the owner, the new owner, not us. So, have we tried outreaching to them as well, to the banks, escrow companies?
We did it in the past, did escrow companies, title companies, realtors, not banks. But that's another possibility.
Or maybe
I think the
even
general manager is really correct. It's really a question of outreach and how much we're going to do. And I think Michael said the same thing. How broad is your outreach program going to be? How aggressive is it going to be? Yeah.
We could even think about bringing in a company to monitor when something's getting sold and let us know, and then we can contact the owner, the bank, and say, you know what? You guys are responsible for the sewer lateral. If something happens, you should not give these people any money till you get an inspection report saying that lateral is good. If it's not good, it should be either the seller gives the new owner a credit for the repair, or the new owner has to suck it up and make sure it's repaired. So that's another option that we should consider, but this is very important. This is something that we need to resolve like in this next year.
Well, it's definitely on our initiatives. We have some goals around it, and we know it's going to take several things, and that's why the presentation tonight, so that the board understood sort of the situation in a little more detail and the things that we'll be proposing going forward. We've been talking about this for quite some time and looking at all of the different options, working with Mick. So we're definitely looking into all that, and we really do think it is an enforcement issue, and just making sure that going back out there and making sure that there's an awareness across the district, not just with the real estate agents, but even somebody who's about to sell their home, that they understand there's a responsibility. So it's going to take several months, and of course the ordinance changes.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to revisit this for sure.
Yep.
Director Staley?
You made a really good point about lenders, President Alvarado. And so this is sort of a follow-up, Mick. If the certificates of compliance are only good for 10 years, can we not put notice on the deeds now? Because probably very few people have a certificate of compliance that's still good.
That's an excellent question. The answer is yes, you can. And what we probably should consider is when we issue a certificate of compliance, making it a recordable document and recording it against the property to which it's issued.
Well, that's what I'm asking is, can we not record on everybody in our district, which probably will be pretty much everybody, you're out of compliance because you either don't have or your compliance is expired? Can we not put notice on everybody's deed? Because if it's on a recordable deed, then the lenders are going to know about it. Then, it doesn't matter if the real estate agents are doing their job or not. The point is nobody's going to lend money to get this done. And so that seems like that would solve the whole notice issue.
And I agree with that, but I said 26,000, it might be more than that, parcels in the district, so it's going to be a big task. The first question was, can we record one document that would apply to all 26,000 or whatever is parcels? Don't think so. So it's a pretty big task to do what you're suggesting, but I think it can be done.
Yeah, so let's just say that for the sake of my questions, that was something that we did, and we farmed it out to somebody to go do it for us. If we had a PR campaign that let people know we're going to be doing this, so don't be surprised, then people aren't going to be all outraged when they go to sell their house. And part of that campaign is, now that we got the lateral, is just a reminder that we have this compliance thing, and we're going to be enforcing it. So don't be surprised, and make sure that it's going to all the addresses, so it's not going just to the homeowners, or vice versa, however we're doing our mailings. And I originally started this with I know there's services out there that provide information on darn near everything that has to do with real estate. Whatever you want to know, there's a service out there that will provide you with the information. But then rather than finding out the information after a property is sold, I think I prefer let's do a PR and let's do a recordable notice. And to answer your question, Michael, how big are we? What is our appetite? I would really like this to go to committee so that we have the time to more fully vet this and ask questions. One, but my answer is whatever we got to do to get the money without having to go through foreclosing on people and stuff like that. So I don't know what the answers are, and you probably know more than me since you have been working on this. So that's why I'd like this to go to committee so these questions can get answered rather than just asking us what is our appetite. I mean, I would like to know, well, what are the answers to some of these things? What are the options to some of these things? And it's still evolving.
So we will bring an item back that has more detail. This was really tonight just to introduce to you that we will be bringing an item. And we've talked about, I believe it's one of my general manager goals about the campaign. So we're going to do the campaign regardless, but there are some things that we have to work out. And certainly we'll be using many platforms to get that message out about the existing program, and it's actually one of the items for CV strategies as well. That's on their task list for creating that campaign.
Yeah, my concern is just a matter of fairness. One, that people are getting notice beforehand so they're not surprised when they either buy or sell, and also finding out if there's a way that we can help that doesn't take any of our ratepayers' money.
So we will present a lot of options and then get a sense of what the board is thinking and how far you want us to go, and then we'll bring that back. I believe that we had planned to go to committee. But some of the timing has changed. We had planned to get in front of the board a little sooner than we have. There have been a lot of things going on. So I can't remember when we were bringing this back. Plan.
We need to bring it back before the end of March, at least. The grant program, though we started it at least a year ago with evaluating it and redefining it, since we have the Riverwatch agreement, it's tied to our Riverwatch agreement. So we actually need to at least bring it back to the board before the end of March. It doesn't mean that the board absolutely has to adopt it. I think that our agreement says we have to bring it back. So we can bring it back and you can give us direction to go and do something different with it, but we need to bring it back by the end of March.
Well, could it be in committee in March and then come to the board?
I'm not sure. That would be a question for Nick. I think our agreement says to the board for approval.
So what we can do is present, one of the reasons this got delayed is that we were hoping to bring to the board a comprehensive plan with funding options, and so I kept kind of pushing them back. They've been ready for some time to present this, and now we just got to a point where we said, well, we're not ready with another option other than a grant at the moment, so we'll deal with that later. So that's why our timing is a little rushed. We can certainly present it to the board and go back to committee. You can direct us to go back and work with the committee, but at least we can present it, everyone can hear it, and then we can certainly work with the committee to refine the proposal and then bring it back. That's an option. That will meet both those objectives.
Just one little point of clarification. I don't understand the urgency of March.
So when we had our atmospheric river and we had the illicit discharge at the plant, there's an organization, Riverwatch, that sued the district. As part of that settlement, we agreed that we would bring a grant program to the board by the end of March.
Gotcha.
So I think
Okay.
if we don't bring it by then, we're in violation of that agreement.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Everybody good?
Can I say one thing here?
Sure, go right ahead.
I believe that a lot of new homes that are getting built in our district will have an HOA, so maybe we can reach out to their HOAs as well and maybe see if we can put it into the CCNRs as a process or guidance.
HOAs have been extremely helpful in this process.
So I don't think my HOA, and I'm the president of that one, I don't think we knew. So I don't think there will be a problem giving that to new homeowners because we want them to make sure that they come into a residence that's going to be compliant. So.
Okay, thank you. I think before we go into a regular session, we'll have like a 5-minute recess in case somebody has to use the bathroom. Thank you. Be back at 6:33.
So did you ever get to talk to Maria? Yeah, because I was on the, I'm always on my Facebook.
Yeah, since you guys can get in contact with us, or I can help you guys out, because we used to originally, when we started the program, it was a $4,000 flat rate for everybody. And then, once it became more popular, everybody was flying, and now we've dropped it to $1,500 for just a flat rate. But then if it's on a paving project, because paving streets are expensive, we up them, or high and I area, we give them $2,500. We work with the realtors and the board of realtors and all that fun stuff, and we have 3 triggers. And what happens is if somebody is remodeling their home, anything over $75,000, or they add a bathroom, or they have a home sale, any one of those triggers makes them come into compliance. And what happens is we put it on the homeowner, and the worst case scenario is we put a lien on the property. And so we actually get notification, and that's who you guys need to contact Patrick, because him and I are the ones that work in regard. He gets the notifications for the home sales, and then we send, and then once we get the trigger, they have 90 days. In our ordinances, the homeowner has 90 days from point of sale, from the close of escrow, to have their lateral come into compliance. After 90 days, they start getting letters from us stating, you're out of compliance if you don't come in, and they get, I think, up to 6 letters. So it's about a year. And after that, we put worst case scenario, put a lien on the property. Technically, it's on the seller to come into compliance, and the requirement that we put them on is that they have to at least do a video inspection first, and then transfer that over to the buyer. But it's purely between the buyer and the seller to negotiate that, and it's on them to figure that out.
This is all in the ordinance. It's already there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, but we don't have their, yeah.
To give it the, oh, gotcha. We don't get letters, we don't get notices. Oh, that's for the home sale. Yeah.
Every couple of weeks, and send out a bunch of letters.
Well, we do have the vehicle, we just don't have the authorization. I looked at the Baykeeper settle, we had 242 miles of lines, and that would be 4.8 miles a year. 2%. That's a lot.
And,
Yeah. I know the one thing that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know one thing. Well, so in regards to the HOA thing, though, because every HOA is different, right? And some of the HOAs, they're responsible for the laterals, and some they're not. All the HOAs are? Interesting, because it's not the same for us. It's depending on the HOA. If the HOA is responsible for whatever it is, then that's what they take care of. But there are certain condos in Marin where they're no, they're not, and some of them they are complete the whole time. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
We only wanted to have one entity to deal with.
Yeah.
That's why it's that way.
Yeah. The other thing I also noticed what comes really confusing for homeowners is they don't know, one, what the heck lateral is, and two, where their liability is and what they're responsible. So we have, we've got commercials out now. It's all over our website where it states that there's the graphic of from the house to the main, and upper is from the house to the curb, the lower is still your responsibility from the curb to the main, because they think once it's in the street, and I don't know if that's how it is.
Let's start with that.
That's right, yeah.
I went to City of Richmond, they told me that they can't do anything.
Yeah. Well, neither do we, though. It's purely on the property taxes as well. Yeah, I think it's just, but like she said, I mean, we would. So when it comes to paving projects specifically for us, what we do is we try to work with them.
I do.
Oh, go for it. We can talk later.
You're right. See, the question is, how much authority is the board going to give staff to enforce. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to say, don't worry
You
about
have to threaten them somehow, otherwise they're never gonna do anything. And the
it.
thing
For
is,
other entities, I've got warrants.
Yeah.
I've got
Oh,
inspection
really?
warrants. You go on the property, do the work, and go.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because for us, for the grant program, they only have 90 days to submit. So the process is they apply for the grant. No work is allowed to be done prior to approval. There's no retroactive pay anymore. And once they have the work done, and as long as it's done and signed off before their expiration date, then they submit the paid in full invoice to me, and then we process a check within 30 days.
Yeah.
If you don't make it by the 90-day cutoff, you're out.
Yeah.
And that's the incentive for them to pay and get it taken care of.
Agreed. Yep. And we actually have that in place too. We were funding $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
At first, it was $3,000 per model, same issue.
Yeah.
Then it got to be too popular.
Yeah.
Cut it in half, except for extraordinary little
Yeah.
long back. And we always ran
I'm
out of
surprised
money.
you guys even do that, because the only thing that we made it decipher is that, it's either no low income, no link, it's all about if they're on a paving project or not. Because just for Larkspur alone, it is $15,000 fine, a fine, just to touch the paving.
Yeah.
Not the cost of the job.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous how much money. That's why we try to work with the homeowners in the city. So we're like, hey, Larkspur, okay, if you're going to do a paving project, you give me that list right now, everybody, and then we send a letter to all the homeowners.
Right.
And so sometimes we'll send the letters on our own, but sometimes we'll send a letter to Larkspur, and when they send out the notification to them, they send a letter on our behalf like, hey, we have a loan program and a grant program. You can apply for either one, and you have until this date, because then they don't issue encroachment permits because you can't get an encroachment permit. That's all that too. There's like so many different aspects to the grant loan. It's ridiculous.
But the question is going to turn on how much do they want, how tough do they want to do? Really?
Yeah.
I think the outreach does a lot.
I mean, and you have to go back and remind them, right? You can't just tell them once, and then. But we have heard, that there is a lot of, West County doesn't really enforce.
Right.
So we can probably get away with it.
Yep.
Even the guy who came, remember he was contesting our ordinance?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Well, he didn't know about it. He
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah.
And there is a belief that they can pass it off. So
Well, they
The
can.
responsibility?
they're not supposed to. They're supposed to do it at the time of sale. They're not supposed to pass it on to the new owner.
See, for us, it's a negotiation between the buyer and the seller. All we have in our ordinance states that as long as the seller has the inspection report done, then it's purely on the buyer to take on that responsibility. But then they have 90 days from the close of escrow to have it done, and that's it. And then they start getting notifications from us.
See, for us, that's on the payment part, but they can negotiate between them as to who's going to actually
Yeah.
pay for it.
Okay, good.
All right, folks, let's start getting back. Could we start making our way back to the dais and the tables, please?
Oh, John. Oh, good.
I knew this sounded familiar.
Proper, I agree with that.
Doesn't make any difference that we have an ordinance that they can't stop it.
Andrew? Aaron? Will you get me some more water? Because you will be faster than me walking up and down there.
I know. I get that.
appreciate it very much.
I mean, it hasn't been an easy thing to solve. I know we spent a lot of time investigating it.
Is the district exempt from recording fees, though? Public agency.
We are.
Yeah, I think you're exempt, so it doesn't cost anything to actually record. They can't charge you a fee. Yeah.
Anybody I know that's going to give
The only thing that we get, we have to do
if I could get
when you meet with a loan provider.
Yeah.
Carrie? One of those better looking chocolates.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting back to order, 6:38.
Sad.
First item, please.
Pledge, item 2B, Pledge of Allegiance.
I'll call.
Item 2A, roll call. President Alvarado.
Here.
Vice President Suddeth.
Vice President Sutter?
Cheryl?
I am here.
All right.
Director Stanley?
I'm here.
Yes.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Next item, please.
Item 2B, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As soon as possible.
Item 3, Approval of Agenda.
What is the will of the body?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Second, please.
I second. Ed Harry.
Sherry won.
Item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Director Stanley?
Yes.
Director Alvarado?
Yes.
President Alvarado?
Yes.
Vice President Seta?
Yes.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item, please.
Item 4, Public Comments. Items not on the agenda. Members of the public may speak to an item on the agenda at the time the matter is being discussed by the board. Under this section, members of the public may address the board on any item of interest that is within the district's jurisdiction and not listed on this agenda. Directors may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed, request clarification, refer the matter to staff, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board cannot act on items not listed on this agenda. Individuals who wish to address the board at the meeting are asked to submit a speaker card to their administrative supervisor prior to the start of the meeting. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Public comments on items listed on the agenda will be heard at the time the agenda item is being discussed.
Do we have any public comments on anything not on the agenda? Seeing none, next item.
Item 5, Consent Calendar. Item 5A, Recommendation, approve the minutes of the meeting of February 5th, 2020.
I'd like to make a correction on that. How do I do that?
So are you removing that from consent calendar?
Yes.
I don't think to make a correction is necessary to remove it from a consent calendar.
You say that again? I missed.
Sherry wants to make a correction to,
So do I.
okay?
We have to pull it.
Well, then you're supposed to.
Has to be
move-
pulled.
Yeah.
You have to remove it?
Yeah,
I
pull
mean,
it,
on
pull it, make
minutes?
the correction.
Put
and
it on the action
reinsert
calendar.
or-
All right, so. Move to remove.
Item 5,
Do I have to move to remove?
Motion to do that?
There's a couple ways to do it. Typically, someone would make a motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar, then you go back to the items that are pulled and then act on them.
Okay, do we need a motion to pull it?
No.
Okay. Continue then.
Item 5B, approve proclamation recognizing the month of March as Women's History Month. Item C, recommendation, adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to execute a contract with Carrillo Engineers, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $223,520 for the design of the variable frequency drives and motor control centers improvements project at the Water Quality and Resource Recovery Plant. Item D, recommendation, adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to execute a contract with Carrillo Engineers, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $91,410 for the pre-design of the digester evaluation project at the Water Quality and Resource Recovery Plant.
Okay, what is the will of the body on items B through D?
I move that we approve the balance of the consent calendar, items B through D.
Second, please.
Second.
So the item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Vice President Alvarado? President Alvarado?
Yes.
Vice President Seta?
Yes.
Director Stanley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item, please.
Item 6, action calendar. We're going to
Do we go back to the 2 items?
Hey, fine, yeah, but whatever was.
It's got to be part of the action calendar, right? So do we do it
No, you just
first
do it on-
thing?
You do it on the consent calendar still.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to item A then.
recommendation, approve the minutes of the meeting for February 5th, 2020.
All right, this time we'll go, Director Weiner?
Yes, I have a correction. The item 8 should read, February minutes, item 8 should read, Director Weiner reported on his attendance of the Contra Costa Special Districts Association meeting the El Sobrante Chamber of Commerce meeting and the El Sobrante Municipal Advisory Commission.
Noted. Make those changes.
Noted.
Dr. Stanley?
Under 8A, my attendance was at the North Richmond MAC, not the El Sobrante MAC, for advisory council meeting.
Is that it?
Yes.
Noted.
Noted.
What is the will of the body on this?
I move to accept the minutes from February 5th, 2020.
Second, please.
Second.
So the item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Stanley?
Yes.
President Alvarado?
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth?
Yes.
Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
Item 6, action calendar. 6A, adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to execute the amended agreement for supply of chlorinated secondary effluent with East Bay Municipal Utility District.
So Andrew, I assume you're giving us a report on this?
Yes. This is, I can just give you a brief overview. This is the agreement with East Bay Mud, and staff has been working on this actively probably for the last year, but been in talks well before that. So Andrew's going to give the board a brief overview of the changes and the proposed agreement. We also have 2 representatives from East Bay Mud here that will also talk, I think, after the presentation.
Mm-hmm. So before you begin, just so I have this correct, they're going to provide public comments after the presentation.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah?
As long as you allow public comment, it can be before or after.
Okay.
So it's up to you,
Continue, please.
whichever.
We'll do it after.
Okay.
Good evening, President Alvarado, members of the board. My first question is what level of presentation would you like on just a very brief sort of summary. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that have changed and what it looks like going forward. I think everyone is familiar with, in general, what the agreement is that we provide the secondary chlorinated effluent over to these reclaimed water facilities. Within this used for a variety of industrial purposes and others, specifically a Chevron and some other facilities that East Bay Mud delivers the water to. And if you have any more specific questions on that, since I have East Bay Mud in the room, I'm just going to go past that. There are 2 agreements. It began in 1990 and it was amended in 2007. So this is the second amendment or second amended agreement, I should say. I've been working closely to try to get this done, and it's going on for quite some time. And in general, in the staff report, summarized with a few bullet points here, it more accurately reflects the current operating conditions, clarifies definitions and reporting requirements. It does provide that the agreement may be amended by the mutual consent of both parties. It also defines the water quality criteria specifically, and we worked to get some of the language in there that some of the previous agreements have been, from our perspective, a little bit more onerous, where East Bay Mud generally acting almost in these documents, in these partnership agreements, as a regulator, and regulating us to some of that language, which was perhaps very understandable with what was happening earlier in some of the construction and what's had to happen. We feel that we're working with East Bay Mud as a partner, and we are delivering quality water, so we want to make some of those changes inside the agreement as well. We've acknowledged the completion of all of the projects that are required to be able to treat the water. We established the basis of payment for the delivery of the secondary effluent, and we've established clear ownership, operations, and maintenance responsibilities for all partners, including the intent by the West County Wastewater District to use its best efforts to provide up to 12.5 million gallons per day of high-quality delivered secondary effluent. And that's what we're going over to East Bay Mud for that purpose. We aren't currently sending them
Well, I can say this. I thank God for lawyers. Because this is very technical. So, questions? We'll start on this end.
Perfect. I do. I'll start with, and thank you for the brief summary, because it was a lot of reading, trying to get through all of it, so I don't know if I answered it. And thank you both for being here today. I'm sorry? I looked at the pretty pictures. No, I tried to read. I didn't understand a lot of the technical terms, but I did look through the 442 pages of agenda packet you gave us. Thank you for that less tree we have alive today. And some of this question might have been in there. It's just that the technical portions I didn't always understand. As you mentioned earlier, 6.5 to 7 millions of gallons per day. What are we doing with the rest of it that they're not taking?
That would go to the outfall.
Okay. And then that I kind of knew that answer. Again, it goes to your second bullet point, that we recognize the benefits of recycling the municipal wastewater. Somewhere in the agreement, I also noted, and I made my notes on my phone, that it notes East Bay Mud is responsible for the sale and distribution of water. Is that acknowledgement that we want to recycle more of this water and them not taking the rest of our water? Is that still prohibiting us from being able to do something else with that water? If they are the responsible for the sale and distribution, does that mean that we cannot do the other 6 million gallons of water if we can't give it to somewhere else, sell it somewhere else?
I'm going to take the first part of it, and then I think Nick might want to answer that. But the 12.5 million gallons per day is we are committing to make every effort to deliver them up to 12.5. Beyond that, there is no specific thing.
I'm sorry.
And then that water that isn't being delivered, right now, it's not using it. I would assume, and ask them, they would mind us to do something else with it. But the reality is, we're doing it for this 10-year time frame of this agreement to build some infrastructure and be able to deliver water that meets the requirements of what Williams Bay Mud does to treat and deliver that water after we give it to them. Highly unlikely to happen within that time.
But there have been changes in the Sanitary District Act of 1923. It used to be East Bay Mud was the sole purveyor of water within its jurisdictional boundaries, and it still is. However, there's been a carve-out, an exception for effluent. You can, if you have excess effluent that's not within the 12.5 million gallons that we're obliged to give to East Bay Mud, you can recycle it.
We can recycle it, but can we sell it or use it on other means? Because right now, what we're doing is we're cleaning it, and then we're disposing of it into the bay, if they're not taking it. My concern is
yes, you can.
So the answer is yes, we can sell it?
Yes.
Do we need to have that specified in here? Because right now it does say East Bay Mud is responsible for the sale and distribution of water.
It's water. See, the effluent is not, for this purpose, is not water.
So thank you for that clarification. That solves that there. My other question was in regards to the basis of payment. I know that, and again, maybe I don't understand it correctly, but it says that East Bay Mud is giving us pretty much enough money for them, for whatever it costs us to give them their water. So we're not making any profit off of this process?
That's correct. The intent of that was to pay for the difference in the chemical elimination costs.
Okay, so we make no profit. If it costs us $1, they pay us $1.
That, in theory, that's what's supposed to do with this.
Okay.
Does it really capture all administrative and all this
And then that was part of my second question, and that we were fully recovering all the cost because of all the staff, anything else, because on there it says electricity. I don't know what it exactly said, but it said I believe it said electricity and
energy and chemicals.
yes, thank you.
And those are the costs, and those would be the difference if we did not further treat the effluent to be able to then send it East Bay Mud for their purposes. If we could just send it down to the outfall, that's the difference in the cost of treatment. Otherwise,
Okay. I think that is.
If I could just add one thing, is that, and by the way, air, water quality, as you know. The other thing is that East Bay let us take the water, and they have to run it through their own treatment plants, and there are additional costs for them to treat it to the level that it used to go to Chevron. So,
Just say one question.
That's the reality.
Thank you.
So just to clarify what you said, Aaron, so even if East Bay Mud wasn't receiving the water, in order for us to give it to someone else to take it, there would be an additional process, which we're not currently set up for, do not have the capital, and be a huge capital investment. Okay.
That's my other question.
And my question was just, is anybody making any profit in this whole process, or is it Chevron? Because we're cleaning the water, they're cleaning the water, they're getting it to Chevron, somebody's making some.
We're required to clean the water and discharge it at the outfall according to the conditions of our permit. And then there's a certain portion of the treatment process that it is being covered by the differential there in the energy and chemical costs. And what we have to do, what it costs to do that extra treatment. We're going to send it over to East Bay. They're covering that cost. That is the intent of that. Rather, I'll call it arcane, because I certainly don't fully understand the BioWind model, but if you wanted some more detail on that, I think I need to talk a little bit about it. But it's basically, that's what it is.
Okay, thank you. No, I don't need more detail. That covers it. And then just to tying it all back around, in there it mentions that the country club used to take some of our reused water, and something happened with them and they weren't able to take it. So just to re-clarify if I believe I understand correctly, if they were to get back up and running with their pipes, we could continue once again to give them our recycled water without necessarily doing anything against our agreement with East Bay Mud currently.
I don't think that's the case.
That's part of the complex and intertwining agreements.
Yeah. No, I think we would need East Bay Mud's consent, because the rare agreement obliges us to give East Bay Mud 12.5 million gallons.
But if they're only taking 6.5, I'll just run them down to 6 and 12. If they're only taking 6, if we're disposing of 6 million gallons of water each day into the bay that we could be giving to the country club.
Yes, again, I think we would need East Bay Mud's consent. We'd at least have a conversation with them before we did that.
Did I miss?
And really, it's very interesting, because the reason the club is not taking the water anymore is because the Chevron line that it used to run through has deteriorated. It would cost several $1 million to replace. Nobody has wanted to spend the money to replace that line, only to send, 300 gallons a day to Richmond Country Club.
Yeah, I'm just using that as an example. So because if I heard you earlier that there is either a law or some stipulation that says that affluent water is not water, so it can be sent somewhere else.
It's sewer byproduct, but yes.
Right, so then why would we need East Bay Mud's permission
If it is within the 12.5 million gallons a day we're obliged to give East Bay Mud, and they are asking for all of our effluent, then anything we take away from that, we could only do with their consent.
So
if it's, I was just about to finish that. If it's excess, we could do what you're suggesting.
Okay, and if it's under but they're not taking it, then that's when we ask them saying, confirm you're not going to take it, is it okay to give it somewhere else? I see your head nod, thank you.
Yes.
If I could just add one more thing, Director. In the summer, during the dry season, 5 driest months, we're only treating and putting out between 6.5 and 7 million gallons a day of effluent. So the 12 million gallons or 12.5 million gallons that they might have allowed is up to that level. But in the summer, they're essentially taking all of our water in the dry season. It's just that right now we're putting out 10, 11 million gallons a day because we're still getting I&I and our flows are higher than what we would describe. So Thomas, that helps.
Yeah, no, that helps, thank you. And I did learn from the trainings that you all gave me. I'm new, but I learned. But what I'm trying to get at is in the long term, right, during the dry seasons, we have less water. During the wet seasons, we have more water, and that doesn't mean we should just throw it away. I want to make sure that we're using it somewhere, so when we do have the dry seasons, someone's already using it, and we're not getting into a bad circle.
And the other unfortunate reality is that the country club
Thank you, thank you.
All set?
All set, thank you.
Dr. Weiner?
Yeah, reading through the whole complex agreements, I came across some things that I, of course, didn't know anything about. So I have some questions regarding that, nothing to do with the action item, but more to do with the report that came with the action item. Is it appropriate, President Alvarado, to ask these questions?
I'll ask our attorney.
Yeah, of course it is.
Okay.
So,
Go right ahead.
what is the final disposition of the Class 2 leachates that go to Richmond? What do they do with them?
It processes through their treatment plant and they discharge it.
And-
The primary constituent in the leachate that's problematic, I think, is TDS, right?
TDS and it's ammonia.
And ammonia, yeah. So they process that through their plant and discharge.
But do they remove that, or they just discharge it with it?
They discharge it with it. You can't remove the chlorides without reverse osmosis or some advanced treatment.
All right, so basically the Class 2 leachates go through us to them and then out into the bay.
It bypasses us.
Right. Oh, goes direct to them.
Bypasses us, goes directly to Richmond, goes through the Richmond treatment plant, and then out. Then it's discharged.
Okay, and then what is alum sludge as opposed to our sludge? What's the diff?
East Bay Bud could tell you it's part of it's part of the sludge created by their wastewater treatment facility. I think we take it from the Sobranti filtration plant.
Correct, it's from the water treatment plants. You're correct. It's not from our wastewater plants when we treat water. Alum sludge is the solids left as part of the treatment process, not potable for drinking water.
Correct.
And okay, so do we process it? Do we mix it with our solids?
It becomes part of our biosolids, yeah.
So and does it contain anything different than what our
Could we introduce Eileen since she's
Eileen.
standing up so you guys know who you're, yeah.
And I'm surprised Eileen knows all the answers to these questions, but it's great to know that she does.
Well, so maybe let me introduce myself. I'm Eileen White, and I'm the director of wastewater at East Bay Med, and I've been the director since April of 2017. But the 17 years prior to that, I ran East Bay Med's water system, including doing the driest 4 years in the wettest run record. So that's why I know about the treatment plants. And I've come here before and worked with West County and Member, and she just bought some of the water system.
Thank you.
I just wanted you to know since.
Okay, so
And meanwhile, let me read all the things about other comment. I just wanted, one of the reasons I was here tonight is I just wanted to thank Lisa and her wonderful team that she's hired over the last year, that they've been wonderful to work with as we finalize this agreement. And this agreement, I just want to back to your question, it's not about anyone making a profit or all public agencies. It's about doing good with this water and recycling. You know, in California, especially with climate change, as they say, water is for fighting and whiskey is for drinking. Water is a big deal, and if we can reuse water, and in fact, there's a Hertzberg bill last year that was trying to require all wastewater utilities to recycle all of their wastewater, and that's very difficult to do for a lot of entities. So it's wonderful to partner with West County and Chevron. Chevron's not making money on this, they're doing additional treatment, as Lisa said, but to be able to not use potable water by reusing your wastewater, turning it into recycled water that they can use in their cooling towers at the Chevron facility, frees up more water when we get that next drought that, you know, is somewhere down the road. So it's great for the environment, what we're all doing and partnering to do with municipal agencies.
Thank you.
So I just want to say that, thank you.
If you don't mind, can you just stay there until we're done? Thank you.
So I still haven't,
But we also have Aaron here too, so he can also
Aaron,
answer some of the questions, more
whoever can
technical
answer
questions.
this. So we don't treat alum sludge any different than our,
The alum sludge comes, it's discharged to the sewer, and then it basically becomes part of the wastewater in the sewer pipes and it comes to the plant.
and does its, whatever it has in it, is it different than what we get from our regular sewers?
Well, I'm not a water guy necessarily, but I think alum is used as a settling aid or a flush.
Yeah, it's just a,
So the reason they call it alum sludge is because it has alum. Oh, excellent. That's good. See, simple things were really helpful.
When we negotiated that initial agreement with East Bay Mud, it was viewed as being beneficial to our system, not a detriment.
I I see. Yeah, I was curious to know more about our biosolids, but I can get that offline. You know, what do they consist of? What are the constituent things that we have in them, and you know, that kind of thing. So that,
We'll follow up on those. I have your questions,
Yeah.
and we'll follow up. I'll have Aaron.
that's all I got.
All set?
All.
Director Stanley?
Hello, I met you before when Director Weiner and I did a tour of your rare facility, and which, by the way, I'll just ask right now, it would be really great to bring our new directors along.
We'd be happy to set it for sure. We'd love to. I think that'd be great to do. Maybe that's a way of getting our board and report together to recognize this great accomplishment.
Cool. All right, well, I did that plug, so thank you for that.
I'll work with Lisa to schedule that. That's great.
All right, cool. So I understand, to follow up a little bit on Director Zepeda's, where he was going with this, it seems East Bay Mud wouldn't have a problem if we built holding tanks to hold extra water in the winter for use in the summer.
We wouldn't have any objection to that.
Okay, so if for example, the millions of dollars it would cost to replace the pipe to the country club, they could just bring a truck and truck in their water to some tank over at their place, and that would solve that problem. And if we wanted to, we're thinking about building a levee, and we're working with Supervisor, I can't speak now, Joyer's office, and it might be a big levee, or it might not. We don't know yet. But a levee would require watering plants and things. So if we had a way of saving winter water, that would be an appropriate place for us to be using that water, rather than putting it in an outflow, correct?
You can recycle the water. You might want to treat it depending on what you're using it for and what planting you're doing on the levee, which depends on the quality of the water you potentially want.
Okay, but my
I
question...
hate to interrupt you, Director Stanley, but you're getting off the rails here. Do you have a question on the agreement that's before us?
I have a question that I specifically want from East Bay Mud.
On the
Can
agreement?
I ask that question, Mick?
On the agreement? If you have it, then yes.
As part of the agreement or the staff report, yes, if it's within that scope, not, if this is not just a general presentation.
Well, we're supposed to be allotting 12.5 million gallons to East Bay Mud.
Mm-hmm.
My question is if we saved extra water that in the winter, and we treated it or whatever we did with it, we could use it in the summer, and that would be okay with East Bay Mud.
That's a fair
my
question. Okay.
And you said above the 12.5 million, and we're not going to use 12.5 anytime soon. We're working with Chevron to see if there's opportunities over the next few years to grow that 7.5 to 12, but we have no plan, we have no immediate plans to do that in the near term. So anything within, above the 7.5 is available now. In our winter, we don't use as much. So, and then if it's above the 12.5, we don't even have authority over that. That's up to us.
Okay, that's pretty much what I wanted to know. And just checking, that was it. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Vice President Sedef?
Cheryl?
No. Hi. No, it's fine. It's a well-written report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I have no questions, so thank you both.
Can I make one comment before
Sure.
we finish? I also wanted to acknowledge Eileen and her staff, and our staff as well, and John Haig, Steve Dominguez, and Glenn Lazoff, who are not here, started the process with East Bay Mud. And when Andrew got here, I said, please finish this agreement. So that was like his day one. So I do want to thank all of you as well from our side for working together to come up with something that helps West County really move in the direction of being that environmental leader that we want to be. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, what is the will of the body on this?
I move we accept the staff's recommendation and accept the summary of the agreement at this point. Is this,
Second.
and authorize, I guess this is an action item.
Yes, this is an action item.
Okay, so there was another, so then we have a recommendation to adopt the resolution as well, authorizing the general manager to execute the amended agreement for supply of chlorinated secondary effluent with East Bay Municipal Utility District.
Okay, we have, it's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Stanley?
Yes.
President Alvarado?
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth?
Sure. Sure.
Yes. Sorry, I'm on mute. Yes.
Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item, please.
Did they have one other comment?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you-
Public comments. Just bypassed you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that I kind of said earlier. Thank you, President Alvarado, and members of the board. Thank you, and as Lisa says, you're really being a leader in addressing climate change and really preparing us for the future. For address, we are responsible for providing drinking water to 1.4 million customers in the Bay Area, and you're helping us by recycling this water. It takes the demand for potable water down, especially in times of drought. So it's the right thing to do, and I really enjoy these partnerships that we do with other agencies to protect the environment, to protect public health, and have water available as we address climate change together. So thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
And thank you, Aaron, back there, or
Thank you very much.
what? What's her name? Maura, thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's been a long journey, but we're very happy that we have arrived here. We're enjoying working with your team and just working through any issues that do come up, and water quality gets a little funky, but it's still a relatively new process for you, but we've seen such vast improvements that it's made operations for us so much better. So we enjoy working with you, and we hope to continue this long relationship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, please.
Item 7, information reports. 7A, recommendation, receive the general manager's report for the month of January 2020. 7B, recommendation, receive the board attorney's statement of services dated February 1st, 2020 for services provided in the month of January 2020. 7C, recommendation, receive the financial report for the months of November and December 2019.
And again, just a reminder, we provide these as information. If you want to ask any questions, we can certainly do that, but we don't have any presentation or...
Okay, we'll start on the other end. Any questions on the general manager's report? Director Stanley.
Nope.
Director Weiner.
Do we have a status on Villa Verde and a status on the Hilltop Green project?
We can provide an update at the next meeting on both of those.
Thank you. And on the check register, it seems like the biggest portion of PG.
We're doing A first.
Oh,
Yeah. You all set?
is it A on the GM report?
Receive the are you talking about receive the financial report?
No, the check register came with the GM report. Right?
Yes.
Okay. So the check register came with the GM report, and so I just was asking about the costs. It seems like the biggest portion of our electrical costs are the lift stations, and by location they were listed under the largest chunk of money on the check register, and which, by the way, is very helpful. Thank you for adding that information per check on what the check is for. That's been really good. I was just wondering if the NG report is going to address that part of our electrical spending.
They are looking at, and Michael, I don't know if you're more involved with NG, but I believe that is a big portion of what they're looking at.
Yeah, they're looking at all of our electrical usage, and I don't think it works directly lift station to lift station, or usage to usage. It's really an overall, can we account for all of our usage through these processes? So
set?
That's it.
Dr. Spada?
No questions.
Vice President Sutter?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. I have no questions. Next item.
Item 8, matters from staff, general manager, and attorney. Item 8A, staff, general manager, attorney comments, communications, report on issues or matter.
I think we're on 7B.
Yeah, you skipped 7B. But you did read it.
It's okay.
So it's my fault.
Okay, so I'm going back to it again.
Yeah,
We're on
it's my
7B.
fault. I should
Okay,
have said
my
7B.
apologies. 7B, recommendation, receive the board attorney's statement of services dated February 1st, 2020 for services provided in the month of January 2020.
Very specific. This is the time where you go over my invoice. I answer any questions that you may have. I sent out my usual kind of encyclopedic rendition of the invoice, so I think that should cover everything. I did include in that the presentation on AB5 that I intended to discuss at the last meeting. So if you have any questions either on the invoice or AB5, let me know. Coincidentally, I am briefing a case on AB5 right now. I'm probably one of the first ones. So we'll see I'll let you know how it comes out. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Spada?
No questions.
Dr. Wiener? Dr. Stanley?
No, thank you.
Vice President Sutter?
Yes, sir. No issue.
And I have no questions. 7C, please.
Recommendation, receive the financial report for the months of November and December 2019.
Again, information report, just if you guys have questions.
Dr. Stanley?
Oh, no, sorry, no.
Dr. Wiener?
No questions on the budget report.
Director Cepeda?
None?
Vice President Sutter?
Yes, sir.
No questions?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
And I have no questions. Next item, please.
Item 8, matters from staff, general manager, and attorney. 8A, staff, general manager, attorney comments, communications, report on issues or matters pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
So I'm going to ask Michael to just give you a quick update on Hilltop Green. We will come back on Villa Verde and provide that later, but we can give you just a quick update. If you're ready to.
So we had a meeting with the designers that the city has hired for Villa Verde, and the city is moving forward with the design and a build project to replace and restore the road on Villa Verde, and we have a line in the street that will need to be replaced at the same time. That's essentially where we are on Villa Verde. Currently, our staff, our CSO staff, is maintaining the temporary wet well there. I believe that they're getting some support also from our maintenance staff. So district staff are maintaining what we're using as a temporary wet well, which is essentially a manhole that we plugged on one side, and we've set up a temporary pump around that.
And do you have a burn rate? I mean, what is it costing us to
I'm not sure. We can figure that out and get back to them.
that would be interesting to know what we spend monthly to accommodate the
It's gone down from where we were originally, but there's still a
The
cost.
staff cost has gone down for sure. We were having some issues in the beginning, and we're starting to have some more issues there now, actually, with wipes being in the pipe. When we first set that up, we had a bunch of clogging of the pumps due to the wipes. We did some canvassing of the area. CSO staff, some engineering staff got out. We knocked on doors. We talked to people about not putting the wipes in the pipes. The CSO staff did a really good job of sort of making a rag catching system with some rates that they had, which really caught the rags before they got into our pumps, and it reduced a lot of our maintenance costs. We're now seeing a lot of rags back in our system, the Lysol rags, so we're talking about and trying to organize another canvassing of the area to bring that awareness to the neighborhood. The cost definitely has gone down in terms of staff time, because CSO hasn't had to go out as often as they handle those pumps.
Thank you.
And in terms of Hilltop Green, we did the drilling. We drilled the line in, we pulled in, I think it's 1,100 feet of pipe. We connected it to our original connection site. We recall we did a repair when we started this. We put in about 20 feet of ductile iron pipe, and then we had a second sort of hemorrhaging of the line. So we did a horizontal directional drill. We
questions? Director Stanley?
Oh, we've done a lot of community outreach. I left that part out, but it's a really important part of what we've done.
Very
A lot of
important.
community outreach at the top of Hilltop, on Loma, down at the Hilltop Green area. We had, I think Angela updated you at the last meeting, we had a couple of people from the Capital Projects Group, Angela and Keith, both attended the Hilltop Green HOA. So we're doing a lot of work.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a really big effort. We've done essentially what would be a year and a half or 2-year project in about 3.5 months.
Excellent. Director Stanley, any questions?
No?
Yes or no would suffice. Director Weiner?
He answered all my questions. Thank you.
Director Spada?
None.
Vice President Sutter?
No, it sounds like he's on top of it. Thank you.
I'm good as well. Next item.
Item 8B, presentation by Board Attorney on the Brown Act.
Well, this is a new agenda item. It was requested by President Alvarado at the last meeting, and so I thought, well, let's start with the Brown Act. I think the request was that I go through things that are of interest to the district. I decided to start with the Brown Act because most of the questions I still get pertain to the Brown Act somehow. And what I plan to do is this. I want to go through this slowly. So we're going to take the Brown Act in very small bites, but in great detail. So we can all kind of be refreshed on what it means, what we're subject to, and how we comply with it. I intend to take the PowerPoint, and it's only 3 slides tonight. I'll try to keep them 5 to 10 minutes. I intend to add slides every other meeting so that at the end of this, when we finish reviewing the Brown Act, you'll have a booklet, basically, that goes from the beginning to end, and you'll have a reference that we can all refer to as we go along. Let's see, if we could go to the first slide. I decided to start with the underlying principles, and why would I do that? The reason I do that is because these underlying principles tell you what this law is intended to do. Frequently when we're asked to interpret statutes from the legal end, you look and you read the text of a statute and you say, what on earth did they mean when they passed this statute, and how am I supposed to figure it out? Well, in law school they teach you, and in other forums they teach you, look at what the legislature intended. Well, most of the time you can't tell what the legislature intended. This time you can, and in the Brown Act, Government Code Section 54950 specifically, they actually codified the principles on which the Act is based and which are used to interpret the Act. So I wanted to start by just kind of going through them. They color, every time any one of you and any staff member asks me a Brown Act question, I go back to these principles. Because, we can all read the text, but the question is, what does the text mean? It's somewhat like interpreting the Constitution, right? You have the textualists, the Gorsuch and Scalia, who say, read the words. They mean the same thing now as they did back in 1789. You have the Ginsburgs and the Breyers who say, well, yeah, we got to figure out what the words mean in today's context, not back when they were written. This is somewhat the same thing. So we start by looking at the underlying principles, because law is what? Law is an expression of policy. Every law starts with a policy. Somebody says, I want to do X. In this case, what do they want to do? Well, we look at the underlying principles. First thing they said is the first bullet point. The agencies in this state, and that would be this district, exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. You are not deciding what the people's business is. You are helping the people to conduct their business, and they do not surrender their sovereignty to you. You are subject to the people who have created this district. And the third bullet point, the people in delegating authority do not give you, the district board of directors or staff, the right to tell them what they need to know. It is their purpose to tell you, we want to know everything. And the fourth bullet point, if you could switch the slide for me. They insist on remaining informed so they can retain control over the instruments that they have created. Interesting language, the instruments they have created. This district was first created, it was authorized by the Sanitary District Act of 1921, which became 1923. but it was also created by a popular vote. I think there were 50 votes cast in the initial election in 1921, and that's what created the district. So you are created by popular vote. So those are the four underlying principles. And remember, every time you have a Brown Act question, go back to these principles. They will probably answer the question for you, even if the text is confusing. So what is where are these principles contained, or how are they expressed? So you start with the underlying intent, the underlying principles. How are they expressed? Well, they're expressed in Government Code Section 54953, which says what? All meetings must be open and public, and everybody is entitled to attend, right? That's where these principles are first expressed. So so this is as far as we're going to go tonight, except for, I don't want the next slide yet. Next time I address this, we are going to start with the first line, all meetings of the legislative body. I'm going to start with discussing what a legislative body is, and specifically what the legislative body is. And it's going to get a bit Clinton-esque. You may remember the deposition testimony Clinton gave. It depends on what your definition of is. We're going to start with what the definition of the is, and describe what the legislative body is and what constitutes a legislative body, such that meetings must be open and public. Well, that's my introduction. I'm happy to answer any questions now or take any direction. If you don't like this, we can do something else next time.
No, this is
Is this what you had in mind?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll start questions on this side.
I'm giving my thumbs up. Thank you for that and for making it bits.
This is the way I learn, so thank you for approaching it like that.
Yeah.
No questions?
Small bites, good. Okay.
Vice President Sutter?
No, sir.
All right, and I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, please.
Item 9, matters from members of the board. 9A, meeting reports on committee activities, conferences, seminars, and meetings pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
Director Cepeda?
No reports.
Nothing to report. Director Wiener?
I attended the mayor's conference in Pittsburgh. They discussed yes on Measure J, which is transportation money, and Debbie Cooper is now the county clerk recorder. You might know that the previous county clerk left in disgrace for embezzlement or stuff like that. Let's see. I attended the El Sobrante Municipal Advisory Committee and the West County Forum. And the West County Forum's topic was old people, so none of you need to worry about it.
Old people?
Old people.
Or all
Old people. It was about scams being perpetrated against old people.
He actually said old people.
It was seniors, so I'm just saying none of you are them, so you don't need to worry about that.
All set?
That's it.
Director Stanley?
Is this the place where I asked permission to go to something?
Go to...
I want to attend an event, and is this the place in the agenda where I asked?
Absolutely.
Okay, so first I want to say that the City of Richmond is putting on what sounds like a really fun Black History event in their recreation auditorium on the 29th, I believe. Music and joyous celebration. It sounds like it's a lot of fun. It costs $10 to go to. And I would like to attend. I got this invite from the San Francisco Esquire Partnership. They're putting together a collaborative to talk about shorelines that sort of dovetails in with our levee. And I thought I'd go to the first one and see if it's something that we might be interested in. And it's in San Francisco. So can I get permission to go to that?
Anything else?
And I would, we're not, future agenda items, nope.
Okay. I have no issue with her attending the meeting. Dr. Spada?
I'm fine, that's good.
Vice President Sedef?
Sure.
Sorry, I was talking, but I was on mute. Yes, I was at the Racial Justice Oversight Body and assigned to the Diversion Committee. I'm already on the Data Subcommittee, on the Diversion Committee. I'll also be working closely with our DA on matters of diversity and diversion and how they dovetail into many of the things that I've been working on. ACLU meeting, upcoming League of Women Voters. I'll be phoning in to many of these meetings, especially our climate meeting with the League of Women Voters in Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville. I'm a speaker for an upcoming meeting with Jacobs Engineering Black History Month. I'm one of their guest panelists. It's actually, it's 44 Days of Black History. If you haven't heard of that, it goes into the middle of March. And I'll also be speaking for the Alliance for Girls. Miss Lisa, I'll talk to you about that again. I spoke to you about that before, but it's getting more girls involved in science and the water industry. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice President Sedef, you jumped the gun a little bit. What I was looking for was your response for Director Stanley attending the conference.
Pardon me?
To attend.
Pardon me?
He wants to know if you have a problem with me going to something in San Francisco that the San Francisco Estuary Partnership is putting on about shorelines.
Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for
And
your
then you
report.
said something about the Richmond
Yeah,
Black History Month?
yeah, I said.
No, I don't have a problem, and if you email me, I may have an extra ticket, so just, I don't have a problem with that one either.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So she gave hers. I'm good. Next item, please. Go to the order.
9B, good of the order, report on events and activities which may be of interest to members of the board and community members.
Dr. Spada.
None to report.
Dr. Lino.
Yeah, I went to a showing of the movie Fantastic Fungi in San Rafael. The theme of the movie was the place of fungi and the evolution of life, its unseen ubiquitous presence, and its power to recycle carbon from organisms that die to organisms that are growing, and how that regenerative power can be used to recover the environment. I'm hoping that the Global Warming Committee can investigate the possibilities of using fungi in our processes, particularly in the area of biosolids. They were here before the planet had soil and literally created soil. And they were here before there were plants and animals. And so all plants and animals evolved from fungi. So we're like 25% fungi in our genetic structure. And so are green plants. So scientists are just scratching the surface, but these things are, there wouldn't be forests without them. And they're pretty amazing things, and people are starting to do pretty amazing things with them. And so I'm hoping we can maybe inoculate our biosolids and turn them into gold by using fungi. Let them do all the work. Yes, sir.
May I?
Please.
A substantial part of our biology and nutrition facilities is because it comes from soil going to the we have a healthy population. Percentage of our funds are from that.
So maybe we can choose the right fungi to do the job and get rid of the other fungi that are standing in our way, flocculation, or whatever we call that problem with fungi. Huh? Or maybe, well, they can digest oil products, and maybe they can also reduce alum to something that can be utilized by growing green plants. So anyway, real interesting movie and very trippy, in case anybody cares about that kind of stuff.
Trippy is good. Director Stanley.
Well, since I told Director Hayner about this, and we're both seem to be soil nerdies, it is still playing in San Rafael until at least Friday, maybe Saturday. So if anyone wants to hit that movie, it's
no problem getting a ticket.
Where are we? Good of the order? Are we at good of the order or
Good of the order.
future?
Good of the order right now.
Well, I think I already mentioned the Black History
did.
Month thing,
Yeah.
so I have nothing.
Vice President Sutter, you did yours already, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
I would like to see if we can arrange a tour to visit where is Chad's? Iron House Sanitary District.
Oakley. Oakley?
Yeah, I would like to see if we can set up a tour for the board. Get a date, people can make it, they can make it. Because I'm very interested in his facility.
You want to see their
I wanted to
cows?
do that for a while.
Their cows?
Yeah. Cows and wells. He's also got other things.
They have a bit of a different process
Yeah, I want to see their process.
and a very clean plant.
Yeah, very clean.
It's very new.
And that's it. Next item, please.
Item 9C, future agenda items, informal observations and inquiries regarding the business of the district or requests for placement of items of interest on a future agenda.
All right, we'll go Director Stanley.
Well, I was very surprised to find out that not only are wipes going down the toilet, but there's now advertising flushable cat litter, which I find really disgusting. But so could we find out what is our awareness program about flushing wipes and stuff? I personally would like to see one of those peel-off vinyl things that you stick on your toilets that says, flush this, don't flush this. So there's no excuse as to why people are flushing stuff down the toilet. Can we get that information?
Central San starts with the kids, and the kids tell their parents. Like 5-year-olds and 4-year-olds, best messengers of good messages ever. So we might look into K through 3 presentations to pass that information along as well.
Director Stanley, you all set?
Yeah, I just want to know what we are doing to educate the public.
Director Weiner?
The only thing I wanted to do was put a reminder out about our board policies, procedures. We're going to supposedly attack that soon.
Director Spada?
Board policy.
No future agenda items, thank you.
Vice President Sutter?
Nothing, sir.
And I have nothing either. I want to thank everybody for tonight. It's a good meeting, good presentation, good information. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Oh, look. Oh, there's a debate.